Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 67 of Magic FM. I'm Gabby Sparks, one of your hosts today, joined by Mashi Scanlon. As always, Mashi, welcome. How's it going?
Hey, Gabby, how are you doing?
Good. Excited to record some Magic FM this month.
Sounds good. We were a little bit late. Gabby, how was that calzone you were finishing up?
It was not. It was actually a burrito, and it was pretty good.
Well,
they all look
here's
very
a-
similar. It's like same concepts of food.
Yeah, meat, maybe
handheld
some
food.
sauce wrapped in a carb, and there you go.
Yeah.
How's
So-
the Mexican food in Denver? I don't know if we already talked about this. I feel like we
It's-
may have.
It's
But
not great, actually. I think we have a lot of really great ethnic food here. Mexican is not like one of the top places, but there are some taquerias. We live close to a more like Hispanic community, so there are some taquerias around there that are pretty good, but you actually have to like know where you're going. So
yeah,
those places are sweet. That like the fancy Mexican places, I don't like those as much. I don't.
oh, I'm
like
not into it.
very not into like the fancy Mexican place. So
Same.
there's a lot of places like that around here. So we're not the biggest fans.
One of the places you used to be able to get in LA, a lot of different spots in LA, particularly in the Hollywood area, is they'd have like grocery stores like a carniceria or something like that, and then they'd be serving tacos or burritos out of there too. And a lot of times it's kind of before the real advent of food trucks. I think a lot of that's migrated to the food truck industry, but a lot of times in LA back in the day, you could go to different grocery stores and they had just really good.
That sounds
Mexican
really
food. That was like
good.
the way you wanted to go.
That's exactly
So-
where you want to get your tacos. That sounds delicious.
Oh yeah, the meat's fresh. You know, it's right there.
I mean, they're cutting it up right there, and then they make the
Yeah,
taco
like
right there also.
I'll take that, please. So
Taking it home,
You know-
eating the taco.
I don't know if it's COVID or not, but there was this weird way where I saw that we were recording Magic FM this week, and on the one hand, I was like, already. On the other hand, I was like, boy, it's been ages since we recorded a Magic FM.
Yeah,
So
I get that
I was
too,
all over the place
actually.
with it.
I
Yeah.
get that too.
The cadence is pretty wonky now, and we talk. Gabby, of course, has taken a step back from streaming, so now I feel like I talk to you almost every day in some form or another, right? So I'm still talking to you all the time, but not on Magic.
Yeah, not
FM
on Magic FM. It is funny because that new cadence also makes it so that like we have that situation this week where there was a really big piece of news and we didn't do Magic FM that week. We're still gonna talk about it a little bit because it was just such a big deal. But yeah, this is kind of old news at this point. Like people have gotten time to acquiesce to the new world because it just happened like a few weeks ago.
The best part about it is we were like, what are we going to talk about? I guess we'll just talk about Modern Horizons 2. We were just scratching our head trying to figure out what to talk about. And I was like, Gabby, I don't think we ever talked about the end of the MPL.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my gosh, we didn't. So I was
We're
like, okay,
yeah,
well,
that
that's
was a huge deal.
Yeah, we totally adjusted to it and forgot that it was even news, but here it is. And we'll get to that later in the show, obviously.
Yeah, totally. How have you been, Maj?
I've been good, man. I can't tell you how happy I am because I got my second shot. I ran the course, the 2 weeks, so I'm fully vaccinated, good to go. I was lucky enough to get Pfizer, and that meant that I could start going to the gym again.
I saw your Instagram post at the gym, and it was like, yeah, that would be Masha. Just like got the vaccine, and I can go back to the gym, like the gym rat I am.
So happy. Like I think I've hit like. Out of the last 21 days, I've been in the gym like 15, right? 3 days on.
That's
1
awesome.
day
Good
off,
for you.
And I didn't realize how much I just needed that for my mental health.
Yeah.
I just feel so much better. I'm so much happier. I'm jumping out of bed in the morning, because I'm like,
Ready
okay,
to
let me get the coffee. I'm gonna be in the gym in 30 minutes, and it's just like, So it's been amazing for me. I'm super duper happy about it. So
endorphins are a powerful thing, man. It's cool that I mean, I know a lot of people who struggled in COVID because in part they're so used to getting out, exercising, being active, playing sports, doing stuff like that. And then it was just like from all of that to zero. Like you can't go to the gym, you can't play sports with people, you can't go out and get exercise. I mean, like you can go things like go run, but it's not quite the same thing. And it really affected with their mental state. I know a lot of people that happened to.
And, to differing degrees, it's part of human nature. Humans are creatures of habit. And what happened with me anyway is I was trying to work out and I was still doing it in various forms, but not with that same rigidity. And I started developing bad habits, whereas the gym is a good habit.
Yeah.
And it's not, I lost one of my favorite habits and I started replacing it with subpar habits and not as good. My diet slipped. Everything started slipping during COVID, right?
Yeah.
So I lost one of my best habits and I started replacing it with bad habits. So it was all bad, but now we're back on track. I'm super duper
Yeah.
happy.
You know what was interesting? I mean, I'm derailing a little bit from the show, but I was watching the live recording of LR, which if you are subscribed to CFB Pro, you can see ahead of time on YouTube because they record it live with a video component like we do here on Magic FM. And they were doing a mailbag episode. And the question was, you know, like now that we have gone through a pandemic, what did you learn about yourselves that, like, God forbid, if another pandemic were to happen again, you would now be more prepared to like handle it better. And I thought it was a really interesting question. And so both Luis and Marshall answered. And Marshall had something similar to say to what you said, which was like, hey, I didn't realize how much like all these habits and all these things that are part of my life, are part of my routine, are things that make me happy. I didn't realize how big of a factor they were. And then I didn't realize how much of that I was carrying through COVID because unlike when you have like a traumatic event or something that just happens and all of a sudden your world changed, this was a very long, drawn out thing. And so months into the pandemic, he just felt like he was carrying all this stress from every day of thinking about what if the people I love get sick? What if I get sick? What about all the habits and things that I had to change about my life that I don't get to, like, I don't get to travel and see my friends. You know, he used to travel like every weekend. And so it was interesting to hear his version of that. Sounds very similar to what you're saying of, hey, you know, COVID hit and then it changed all the habits that I thought were good and in my life and replaced them for things that were not as good in my life. And that was hard because it was also a really long time to do that for.
So it's interesting you bring up this mailbag episode. I have not listened to it, but I did hear there was a bit of a call out when it comes to team drafting for SMAR, Scrimey River, one of the sponsors of Magic FM. Thank you, Dennis. By the way, I've heard directly from Dennis Straniak that there's a video component to that podcast coming soon. So be sure to check that out. We got to get their followers. Their Twitter followers are still below 100, that Scrimey River account. So come on, team. Let's get them over 100. But there was a call out regarding team draft with Team Resources versus SMAR and myself, which, by the way, I don't know why they wouldn't include you there. Probably because you're too good. I do want you to do me a favor at some point today, Gabby. The last time I team drafted was against Luis.
Okay.
As a matter of fact. Yeah, and I think it was M10.
Oh my God, that's a long time ago, dude. I wasn't even playing Magic then.
Yeah, I think it's M10. And you can, I'm sure he'll remember it. It's a team draft where I was on one team with David Ochoa and Josh Utter-Layton.
Okay.
And the other side was Luis, Jerry T, and Brent Peterson, one of our friends.
Okay.
And you just asked Luis how that team draft went.
I'm dying
you asked him about how our match went. And if he can't remember, you just say, Mashi kept talking about Zathrid Acolyte. So, you know, just
all right,
ask
I'll
Luis
commit this to memory. I'll ask him about it.
It'll be a good little reminder for him about my team draft skills.
Mashi, this is years before I started playing Magic. Do you realize how long ago you're quoting me this team draft? I started playing at M13 and I feel like I've been playing Magic forever. Like, that's how long ago you're talking about.
I think it was 2009, which is why I think it was M10. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it was M10.
Yeah, that's wow, that's just crazy. Alrighty, well, we've derailed a little bit, had to do a little catch up since we haven't caught up with each other or folks from the podcast. I do want to do a shout out for the sponsor of the podcast before we get into today's episode. It is channelfireball.com. If you are watching the video component, you can see it on Mashi's shirt right there. We've got a really cool event coming up. It is the official Wizards pre-release Modern Horizons 2 spell table event. If you haven't played in one of those before, you haven't seen them, we've organized some for Strixhaven. We organized another one for Time Spiral Remastered. And if you have never played on Spell Table, it's pretty cool. Basically, you just grab a webcam that sees your game from the top over to your table, and you can play with your friends online that way. And this really took off during COVID because a bunch of people wanted to play Commander. It was, in fact, made for Commander initially. And you couldn't really play with people in person, so people were using Spell Table. And so the whole interface works that way. Now it works so that you can do 1v1, you can play two-headed giant, you can play commander. Like, there's a ton of stuff that you can do with it. But that event is going down real soon. It's actually next weekend, June 11th to June 13th from 3 p.m. to 6 a.m. PT. It's a super fun event. You join via the Discord. There's different teams. So there's like Team Darth or Team Dakin. There's a big community competition about who gets more points. So you can get points by playing in special events and answering trivia questions and playing matches. There's always like achievements that you can get within games. So there's like a little metagame aspect to it. And people always have a fun time. We have a ton of Magic influencers and Magic content creators are going to be a part of that event as well. So yeah, all you really need to play in this event is 6 packs of Modern Horizons 2. That's it. You can also pick up a pre-release pack. We encourage you to go buy that from your local shop. And
get it from anywhere. You don't need, you do not need to get it from
don't need to buy it from CFB. You just need, in fact, if you go pre-release Modern Horizons, you can literally take the same deck and then play in the online pre-release. So it's always a super fun time. It goes on for 3 days. You can hop in and out whenever you want. You can like compete with your team to try to win the competition. It's always been a super fun time, and it's going down next weekend. So I recommend you check it out if you haven't.
Yeah, and there's great stuff. Like, even if you're not going to play, that we put a bunch of pack one pick ones. I think Luis and Huey are working on those.
Those are super fun too. Yeah,
they're amazing because there's nothing sparks debate. I mean, when it's clear cut, it's clear cut. But on those fringe cases, you can have so many great pack one pick one discussions. And I think they have trivia going. They have a bunch of cool stuff. Like, it's really, if you just want to hang out and get that hanging out at the store pre-release vibe, but you're online, I think it's a great place to be.
It's awesome. There's even one event that's super cool called the World Boss.
That's great.
I have never played against the World Boss. I've birded it a lot. Like, I've watched other people play it. But basically, it's like one person who is like super overpowered. They're the boss. And then you have 3 people who are playing 3v1. So it's kind of like Arch Nemesis style. And it's just fun to watch him try to take the boss down. It's almost impossible. It has so much life. So it's like multiple people will have to fight the boss to take the boss
down. Team
after
team.
Yeah. It's really cool. There's just a ton of fun activities and stuff going on. So definitely recommend you check that out. If you want to take a look at all the details, it is at mh2party.com. And there you'll have a link to nearest store to you to buy Modern Horizons packs, the link to the Discord for you to join, all the details about the activities that are going on, all the people that are going to be guests, special guests at the event. So definitely check that out. All right, Mosh, let's head into the news for today. We thought we could talk about the thing that we said at the beginning of the podcast, what was kind of old news, just because we did have some stuff we wanted to touch on, because it's a big deal.
It is.
All right, Masha, you want to tell us about the death of the MPL?
The death of the MPL. So Wizards announced the dissolution of the MPL, and I feel like it was a weird announcement because there was this article, and then there were a lot of responses on Twitter and social media to questions. It was kind of like, maybe this should have been in the original article.
Yes, it was not communicated properly from the beginning.
And I think that the biggest takeaway, and my heart goes out to Wizards because they struggle. They're a large company, and I think they wanted to get ahead of things, and they wanted to be as transparent as possible. And there's this weird balance with transparency between being transparent, but like trying not to be too blunt, where you like are just kind of almost hurtful. Mm-hmm. But I think like the TLDR here is this is the end of professional Magic. Now, I don't say that forever, but for the foreseeable future, I think Wizards of the Coast have been pretty clear. They're getting out of the professional Magic business. There's no more professional Magic. That was what the Pro Tour was. That was what the MPL was, and still kind of is, but the doors are closed. There's one more year to the MPL and Rivals, but that's really just to, I think, keep paying things out as a legacy so that they don't just arbitrarily cut things down and have a whole like, wait a minute, what about all these commitments you made? What about these contracts? What about these tournaments I played in? Like, okay, fine, we're going to let you do that. They're all lame duck tournaments. It's a lame duck league now. There's nothing going on after. But Pro Magic, and I mean, this hurts me because I think I've mentioned it before on this podcast. I've mentioned it many times where, Channel Fireball president and CEO John Sasso and I, we used to joke all the time about taking a year off. I'm going to take a year off from whatever I was working. He would take a year off from wherever he was working. This is well before Channel Fireball. And we would just grind PTQs to get on the Pro Tour. And we'd always call it the year that dreams come true. That's literally like, if you ask Sasso right now, hey, what's this thing, the year that dreams come true? We'd probably laugh and be like, that's the year that Mashi and I take off. We just grind and try to get on the pro tour. That's literally what we talk about. And that dream is dead. That dream is dead. But to be honest, that dream was killed years ago when they started the MPL. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think, I know that you and I have spoken about it. Luis and Huey and I have spoken about it too, where this is kind of like the last gasp. Professional Magic, by and large, for most of us, for anyone listening, certainly for myself, died when they announced the MPL. Like that's kind of when that dream got killed. And this is just kind of like the last chop, I think.
Yeah, so it was weird because when there were I feel like there were two parts to them announcing this like death or dissolution of the MPL. The first part was, I think it was really sad for a lot of people to see essentially a lot of pros whose careers have been dedicated to being excellent at Magic essentially get canned right there. Like the people in the MPL got fired. There's a lot of ways they can spin it around. That's basically what happened. And it's kind of sad because, yeah, there are all these people whose careers are based around this, right? And there's obviously a ton of stuff they can do. They can pivot into doing content. They can pivot into a different game. The people who want to continue doing this will find a way to continue doing this in some way, shape, or form. But for the majority of people, like probably you listener or like you and me, Mashi, I don't think neither you nor I ever had aspirations to like be a pro player, but we all had aspirations of like, I can play in the Pro Tour, right? And there's a really big difference between those two. Like, yep. I neither have had professional aspirations, nor have I ever thought I would ever be good enough to like do it. And if I were, I don't even think I'd want to, right? But there's a pretty big difference between, I'm going to go to the PTQ, I'm going to try my best, I'm going to come prepared with my deck, and if I do really well and I win my PTQ, I play in the Pro Tour, I get to fly to Barcelona, and it's going to be so much fun. And that died a long time ago, and that's exactly what you're saying. The MPL was very like, let's elevate these players and these are the like pinnacle of Magic, but it did not seem like something that was accessible to 99% of the Magic playing population, especially the competitive playing population. So it was like, oh, okay, there's no longer really PTQs for me. There really isn't that like, I'll play in the Pro Tour dream for me. So when the MPL also died, it was like, well, this died for me a long time ago. Like I'm not really grieving that part, And I think that sentiment was pretty widespread.
Yeah. I mean, I think again, for like the Luises and the Hueys and everyone that we're connected to, our friends and people we love and care about, it was very impactful for them. Right.
Yeah. It was a huge deal.
Not to downplay that, but for the rest of us, it was kind of like, yeah, this is where I was 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago when all this happened. What the real tragedy here, and again, I'm not trying to drag anyone, but the real tragedy here is I am just truly in my heart left with the feeling that this didn't have to happen this way. There were things that could have been done to prevent when I think Magic's going to continue for years, for decades, right? So 10 years from now, we may look back on something like the MPL as like just a tragedy. Like there's a great community behind Magic. There are amazing, there are all-time greats that were, in the original MPL and now in the Rivals and MPL. You have Gabriel Nassif, you have Luis Scott Vargas, you have, Paulo Vitor Dama de Rosa, Huey, Reed. I mean, there are legitimately all-time great Magic players that were part of this. And yet somehow it was so mismanaged from the beginning. The image of it was just tarnished, and you have to ask yourself, and I don't know, like I don't know what demands were being made by corporate or who was overseeing any of this stuff, but you have to ask yourself, like, what moves could they have made? They started off on the wrong foot and they just kept going on that foot. It felt like, from my perspective.
Yeah.
And there's always gonna be this sense of like what could have been for me with the MPL, and now it's over.
The thing that's interesting about what you're saying too is that, from what I can tell from what Wizards has said, they're not getting rid of competitive Magic. Like, they don't want, like a lot of people are making the argument, well, Commander's so much bigger now. Of course they're doing everything for Commander. And they actually haven't That's a misconception I think people are making. I don't think
Agreed.
Wizards has come out and said, we don't care about competitive Magic, so we're just going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and cancel everything. Like, they didn't say that. That is how a lot of people are interpreting it. They are saying we are not going to be supporting Magic as a profession. Like, there used to be all these players who played Magic professionally and were supported via the old system, and then were supported right now via the MPL and the Rivals League. And they're canning that part. So they are saying, okay, that is out with the old. That we're not going to do anymore. They have multiple times stated that they are going to do, or they are committed to, like, creating these competitive outlets for players. So we don't know what this is going to look like in the future, but I mean, it could be good. Like, maybe we get into next year and then they roll out a plan that's actually like pretty exciting. Maybe a plan where you and I, Mashi, can once again be excited about, like, what if we play in the Pro Tour, you know? Because, like, that aspiration's just been day. Our aspirations are just done, right?
Oh yeah, those are gone. You know, there is no aspirational path right now, and you have to ask yourself, kind of like, if you put the business hat on, you know, of course, you know, nobody likes to do this. Wizards shouldn't be. I think there's people who think that Wizards shouldn't be run like a business, but it's a business.
It is a business, yeah.
And they just have a game we all love, and I do think it's the best game ever. But ask yourself these questions where you have this Pro Tour and this dream, and that I'm not saying that didn't drive a lot of sales. From a purely marketing perspective, I think it did, because you were selling a dream, and that's the best thing you can possibly sell. It's very intangible. But if you look at the Pro Tour on paper, it's a cost center, right? It's not making you money, not directly. It's a cost center. So what if you instead of taking that cost center and saying, look, we want to drive this aspiration through the Pro Tour, but look, the rise of technology has put us in a situation with things like Twitch and things like Arena and things like Magic Online, where we believe, and I'm making all this up, this is not something I know, but we believe that you can make that living on Twitch. We don't need to pay for that living anymore. So we're going to let it go to Twitch and Arena. So what happens, and I know Wizards isn't doing this, but what happens if all of a sudden they take that cost center, all the money they would have put into the Pro Tour, and they just give it to Arena and Magic Online, probably Arena, Moto, and say, make this the best you can do. And people will play it on Twitch, and people will play it and monetize. Like the pros will be like the Crockies of the world, right?
Yeah.
That's the new Magic Pro. They're the ones who are like, the dream has changed. It's now streaming on Twitch, which I honestly, like, having done box breaks for a very short amount of time, I have no idea how you did it as long as you did, yeah, because that is not an easy job. It is grueling.
People underestimate it. It is a lot of work, especially the people who stream more than I did, because I streamed a good amount, but there's some people who just, like, wake up and stream until they go to bed, and then they wake up the next day and do it again for, like, every day of the week.
And I mean, I loved doing it because we had a community with box breaks, and I miss it. I actually legitimately miss it, and I love doing it. I would be like, oh man, but still, you'd sit down sometimes and be like,
yeah,
okay, here we go. You know?
and when you're behind the camera, it's also performative. Like, you can't just be like, sometimes you have days at work where you're just like, oh my God, I just need the, like, 5th cup of coffee and, like, no one to bother me. But that doesn't happen on stream. On stream, you just gotta be like, all right, we're chipper again. You know?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
And I think that that's, you know, to the degree that when we say pro Magic, it's you're making your living off of it, not necessarily a high level of play or whatever, but making that, I think it's gotta have to migrate towards that end. And if that's really what Wizards is thinking, they need to put more money into Arena. You can't have historic events where it's like, hey, these cards are banned because we can't get them to work. That is laughable. That's bad. You can't do stuff like that anymore.
Yeah, but Mashi, only 1% of people use what is it, spectator mode? Why?
Oh my God. Oh, yeah. Oh my God.
If you have no idea what I'm making fun of here, is there was, like, a thing, I don't know how much this was taken out of context, but they were asking the Arena devs, why no spectator mode, right? Because, like, spectator mode is the biggest barrier right now to showing a cool tournament on Arena. And what they had said was that only 1% of, less than 0.5% of the entire player base uses spectator mode. So, like, there's no resources to devote to developing it, which is like, okay, well, maybe only 0.5% of people, if those stats are true, like, let's say the stats are true, and only 0.5% of the user base uses spectator mode, what about all the tournaments that you have to run professionally? that need
Yep,
spectator
that's the
mode for it
problem.
to work. So people were really mad. I just thought the whole thing was laughable.
Also, come on, where are our Slay the Spire or Battlegrounds mods with the Wizards IP? Like,
Yeah,
I just
man.
I'm
Magic
ready.
Legends came out and that was a bust.
It's like stop making games that would have been great 10 years ago. Like,
Yeah,
get
that
with
is
it.
what
Get
happened
with
with
it.
Magic Legends, 100%.
And I
Um,
mean, those games, Slay the Spire and Battlegrounds, people can watch it. Magic is hard to watch. It's just hard to watch,
yes, it
because if
is.
you don't know everything, you don't understand it. But you
Mm,
can watch these other games and very, very rudimentary. Anyway, that's
yeah.
like my soapbox.
No, I totally hear it. The only and the very last point I wanted to make about the death of the MPL that has made me sad is people talking about how much Magic was a very worldwide game. And I know you've really felt this, Mashi, because you used to
Mhm.
work at events. And I mean, you were on the road every single weekend and week, right, for
Mhm.
years.
Yes.
But also like all these friendships and all these teams and all these connections that have been made due to the international um, nature of the way the game is played. And right now, given the way things sound like they're going to be in the future, people were mourning for all the friendships that they have that are international, where they're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to see this person again. Like, I
Yeah.
might talk to them all the time. I test with them in my testing team, like Luis and his testing team. They're all in different parts of the world, and it's just like, I don't know if I'm going to see some of these people again. Like, we're going to keep testing together, we're still going to be friends, but like, some of these people live in really, really far away from here, and I don't know when's the next opportunity for us to get together. Whereas before, you knew, like, I'm going to see them 4 times a year because I'm going to go to 4 Pro Tours this year. And, that was just something people took as a given and maybe for granted. But it is sad to have it not be a thing anymore.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
And the upside to it is it's a testament to how tight this community can be, how
Yeah.
much this game and how we play it. And it is a deeply complex game when you think about it. And it transcends language barriers and cultural barriers and all these things. When you're playing Magic internationally, you start to really see it about how people can connect over these pieces of cardboard that we all love a lot. And it is sad to see the ability to connect through that diminish. No question.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was really Twitter kind of for a day. I think it just took over like all these memories and
It
all these
was
things.
it
And
was sad. It was sad
odd.
to think about. So overall,
Yeah.
death of the MPL, maybe a very necessary thing because I don't think anyone was out there arguing that the MPL was the most successful thing in the world. But still kind of sad to just see it kind of. I don't know. It feels like the whole thing was very squandered, like a squandered opportunity where
Definitely
I also
Squanderfest.
feel like it could have been great and it wasn't, and then it got canceled, and now professional Magic is kind of canceled. So, like, that's where we ended up.
2023, baby.
Yeah.
It could come back as soon as 2023. So cross your fingers.
Moving on to some more happy news. There is Modern Horizons on the horizon. It's coming out soon, TM. It's coming out real soon. I mean, the pre-release for the event is next weekend. That's
Next weekend, yep.
Spell Table pre-release. And in the United States, they are actually opening up LGSs for you to play locally.
If
you have to
it's-
adhere by local laws, etc. Like wear your mask if you're not vaccinated, or maybe don't go. And if you're vaccinated, I think you're Gucci. But yeah, this is big news, Mashi. How are you feeling about Modern Horizons 2?
This set's pretty crazy, and I just had a little bit of time between my last meeting and recording here, and so I this was like the deepest dive review I've ever done.
Nice.
Not ever done, but in recent memory. What I'm gonna kick it back to you because we recently had your cube on Magic Online. You and Luis had your
That's
cube on Magic
true.
Online. So Moho 2, Modern Horizons 2 is out there. Was there anything that just from that Gabby and Luis cube perspective that jumped out to you in that fashion? Because I mean, this set is honestly, I don't play Modern, just historic and standard and limited, but it feels very powerful. Not like Hogak powerful, because Hogak was too powerful, but like very powerful. Like a lot of cool stuff going on here.
Yeah, I think you're always going to have slight upgrades that you get for specific archetypes. Like I think Ragavan makes sense to add into like the mono red
Ragavan's
lineup, you know, right? And we'll talk about
Yeah.
Ragavan later. So you're always gonna have like little cards like that are just gonna make, you know, like the Jackal Pups of the world are getting kind of power creeped.
Wah, wah.
The
Yes.
Ragavans of the world are coming in and taking their lunch money. There's also a lot of really cool gold cards. Specifically, I know Garth One Eye is like pretty cool 5-color card. I don't know if that card really has that many legs in queue, but it does make really cool tokens. That is another card we can talk about in a bit.
Did you actually, just very quickly on Garth, did you follow the whole token discussion that erupted with the printing of Garth?
No, I didn't. What happened?
So this was asked of, I want to say it was Forsyth who ended up addressing this, but there was this whole discussion. So for those who don't know, let me see if I can find Garth here real quick.
I got the
Garth-
text for you. I can read it if you want. Garth One Eye is
go
a
for it.
5-color legend. Wooburg is the casting cost. Legendary creature, human wizard for a 5/5. And then it taps for choose a card name that hasn't been chosen among Disenchant, Brain Geyser, Terror, Shivan Dragon, Regrowth, and Black Lotus. Create a copy of the card with a chosen name. You may cast the copy. You still pay its costs.
So one of the things we've seen historically in different Master sets and Horizon sets is when you have a token producer, they will include copies of the token.
That's true.
So suddenly there was this discussion.
Are there
about,
Black
wait a minute,
Lotus tokens?
Are we going to get Black Lotus tokens in Modern Horizon 2? Which would have been really interesting. Would have been very interesting to see if something like that would violate, you know, the reserve list.
Yeah.
Aaron Forsyth was very, very clear. Under no uncertain terms will there be tokens, will there be Garth One Eye tokens. It sounds like he put the kibosh on it very quickly, but it was really, really interesting because people were speculating, like, wait, would this violate the reserve list? Like, you know, Shivan Dragon and you know, Black Lotus tokens for Garth One Eye. And then all of a sudden, you know, can you imagine if there was a Wizards printed Black Lotus token?
Yes. Oh my God. I can see why they probably were like, and we're canning that right now.
Yeah.
Don't get any ideas. Like, no.
No. Yeah. So I thought it's so funny, the things that I never would have read Garth and even thought about that. Like the social media is kind of amazing in that way that like sometimes you feel like every single angle is going to be exposed within the first 5 minutes for everything. And that was one where I was like, whoa.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure to some degree, honestly, working at Wizards feels that way also. Because they work on a set for a really long time. They like play test it, make sure that nothing's broken. The card goes out the first day to the public, and within like hours, someone's like, "There's this infinite combo with this other card in Modern, and if you do Saheeli Rai plus Felidar Guardian," though that example was within like the same standard set, so like not a great example. But it's like that's an infinite combo, and it got it routed on the first day.
Do you know how long it took for that to get unlocked?
It was like hours, right?
No, way less.
Really?
It was minutes. It
Oh
was
my God.
minutes, Gabby. Because we knew that the article was coming, so like we didn't know what the article was, but it's like, oh, they're spoiling everything, and so we were watching it, and within like 5 or 10 minutes, Twitter had been
wild,
like, this is
dude.
an infinite combo.
That's wild.
So yeah, it's really bad. So, but yeah, that was just, you know, Modern Horizons and sets like this, they get a little bit crazy, and that's like one of the first things I was like, huh, Black Lotus token. That would have been so interesting.
That would have been so cool. I would have loved that. I can see people getting so mad if that happened because it's like low key kind of violating the reserve list. Like
I think
really low key.
I think they would have gotten in trouble.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
I think it certainly violates the spirit. That's like saying, here's Black Lotus. Oh wait, it's a snow artifact now. Okay, there we go, guys. It's a snow artifact. That matters for gameplay. Sure, that's fine. Like, no, I don't think it plays that way. It's a functional reprint, and I think functional reprints just still get the kibosh. But
yeah,
unfortunate. Would have been woulda, coulda, shoulda. That Garth One Eye Black Lotus token.
Yeah, it's a cool card for sure. Like this is a very commander card, but also I can see it like living in other places too.
Well, this typifies there's so many great themes in this set, but one of, if not maybe just the overarching theme in this set is fan service. This is a fan service set Garth, I don't know if you're right. Garth is actually in the early like Magic novels. That is not a new
This is a
character for this set.
all the planeswalkers, all the titular planeswalkers are like throwback characters, right?
Yes,
And I'm
I
talking
believe so.
like real throwback, like Mashi Scanlan started playing Magic levels of throwback.
No, it's true. I mean, there's a hymn to Torak. Torak is in this set, right? And it's Garth, though, is esoteric even for me because he was in the books.
Yeah,
he was in these early Magic novels. So a lot of old school Magic fans who were reading the books back in the day, I think they're very, very happy to see this. I mean, Dakon's back. Dakon from
Dakon's
Legends.
the only one that was actually a card before this, maybe. Dakon Blackblade.
Yeah, Dakon's Dakon is he's a legend. Yeah, Dakon is a legend from Legends. You know, power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. Now a Planeswalker, which I have a little bit of a bone to pick with that. Like, I don't know if storyline he became a Planeswalker, but sometimes I feel like there's this weird thing where like these throwback creatures from back in the day, they have to be more powerful, so we have to make them Planeswalkers.
So they make them.
Like,
story-wise, usually what happens is something happens to ignite their spark.
Right.
That's usually what happens. Like, Venser starts out as just a regular whatever mage, and then his spark ignites, and then he becomes a for reals Planeswalker. And that happens with a lot of these folks.
And to be fair, you know, Dakon was running around killing Elder Dragons, so, you know, obviously he was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
He's you know, killing Chromium and Arcades Sabbath or whoever he ended up. I think he might have taken them all down except for Nicol Bolas.
Oh.
So maybe it was Nicol Bolas who killed a bunch of them, and Dakon killed one. I can't remember. It's been a long time. So
the Dakon in this set is a 3-mana Planeswalker for Esper color, so white, blue, black. Legendary Planeswalker Dakon. Dakon's Shadow Slayer enters the battlefield with a number of loyalty counters on him equal to the number of lands you control, which is a nice throwback to the old Dakon, like the old text of the Dakon, where his power and toughness was equal to number of lands you controlled. You get to Surveil 2 if you tick up for +1. -3 is exile target creature, and -6 is you may put an artifact card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. So at its very worst, you can always cast him on 3, and it's like a 3-mana removal spell. That's like the floor, basically. So really powerful.
Yeah, and we've seen, I mean, Dakon's sword has featured in many, many things, right? Like, because there's, what's his face in Cold Snap, the heir to the Black Blade, which was power and toughness equal to the number of swamps you had.
I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember the name.
Hakon, I think it's Hakon, heir to the Black Blade. I'm not sure. But and then there's, you know, later Gideon is trying to use the Black Blade to off Nicol Bolas. That does not work well for poor Gids. So definitely kind of, like I said, it's all fan service. Like, these are like all these like old school Magic players, you know, who are very, very embedded. And Modern has, it's so weird that Modern has become like, at first it was Extended, it was Type 1, then Extended, then Legacy, and now Modern has kind of become that spot for older Magic players.
Dude, the funniest thing about Modern to me is that Modern is called because it was supposed to be the modern card frame. Like, so when it was made, it was the new thing. And Modern is like just such an old format now, that the fact that it was called because of the modern card frame is just like such a joke to me.
And how about the fact that Modern Horizons 2 has a bunch of original card frame cards printed in it?
Yeah.
Like, they literally were like, "This, you know what we should do for Modern? We should print some old border cards." Like, that's not really what the name means, guys, but gals, everyone. So, what kind of, anything kind of jump out at you in Modern Horizons 2?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I talked to you about this a little bit before the show started. That there's a cycle of elementals, they're all mythics, that got printed in Modern Horizons, and I thought the direction was kind of strange given where some of the other cards have been getting banned in Modern, even though like the nature of them is a little bit different. So if you have seen these elementals, the green one's called Endurance, the black one's called Grief, the blue one's called Subtlety. And they basically are all, in quotes, free. So let me give you an example. Endurance is colorless green for creature elemental incarnation. It's a mythic. Flash and Reach for a 3/4. When Endurance enters the battlefield, up to one target puts all the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order. and you can evoke it by exiling a green card from your hand. So it's free in the sense that Force of Will is free, right? You have to pay a cost of like exile another card from your hand, but you get to use the evoke ability for free if you want to. Here's the other example. Grief. This is 2 colorless black for a 3/2 with Menace. When Grief enters the battlefield, the target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards a card and evokes for exile a black card from your hand. So once again, another like free spell. The last one, well, there's one for every color, but
there's a whole cycle. Yeah,
it's a whole cycle. But the last one I'm going to read on here, Subtlety, is a 2 colorless blue for a flash flying 3/3. If it normally enters the battlefield, you can you choose up to 1 target spell or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it on the top or the bottom of their library, and then you evoke it with exile a blue card from your hand.
So not a remand, but it's I don't even know what spell that is, but it is weird that they are reprinting, or not reprinting, but printing free spells back into Modern, right, Gab? That's what you messaged me with, like, why are they putting this?
The reason I thought that was weird is because we also have seen that a lot of the recent bans in Moderns have been to kind of punish these cards that cheat on the same axis, like the cards that are free, like the Gitaxian Probes of the world and the Simian Spirit Guides of the world. And to give credit where credit is due, like those cards are different in nature. Those cards are way more combo oriented. The decks that were all using Simian Spirit Guide were never using Simian Spirit Guide in a fair way.
Right.
Git Probe is just cheating on Storm Count, basically.
And Subtlety, though, is also a kind of a combo enabler, right? That last minute protection to get whatever you need through, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And Grief you can use Grief to check to see if the coast is clear, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought, I was kind of taken aback because I thought that was a general direction that Modern was going into. And then just seeing a cycle of mythics that I think are going to be pretty popular among main decks and sideboards in Modern, I was like, but all these cards are also free in a very similar way to Gitaxian Probe and Simian Spirit Guide. So now I don't really get it. Like, I don't really understand the direction anymore. I was a little confused about that.
It does seem, free spells in general, just dangerous territory. That's why Phyrexian Mana is dangerous. And that's why cycles like the, Force of Will and Bounty of the Hunt and all that, it's just dangerous. Like, once you start getting in there, and the reason is, I will say this for Wizards R&D, these are clearly designed to be free spells. They're not supposed to be, creatures with come into play abilities. That's what they are in fact, because they're using the evoke mechanic and stuff, but that's very, very secondary. These are meant to be free spells, and that is the way I think they were designed and hopefully tested within Modern, because that's certainly how they're going to be used. There's no one sitting there going, oh, this is the perfect 4-drop for my deck. That is not how these work. So, but free spells are just Pandora's box. Every time we see them, we're courting Pandora's box again.
It's always been like that, right? It's always the delve spells where the delve was too cheap. It's always the Phyrexian Mana of the world where 2 life wasn't enough to pay. It's like the cheap planeswalkers that come in with too much loyalty. It feels like it's all these things always break Magic in some way, shape, or form. And so when I saw the cycle, I was like, all right, we'll see how this plays out. It kind of was something that jumped at me for sure. What about you? What did you have any things that you thought were really interesting about the cards you saw, or anything that jumped out at you?
I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. Like, for instance, have you seen this Flame Tongue Yearling?
Oh, that sounds cute. Is this like a baby Flame Tongue Kavu?
It's a baby Flame Tongue Kavu, and it's just funny because, I mean, this is Modern, right? And there are so many crazy cards in Modern. So Flame Tongue Yearling is 2 red for a 2/1, multi-kicker, 2 colorless. Flame Tongue Yearling enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each time it was kicked. When Flame Tongue Yearling enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature.
Oh, so it can grow up to become a Flame Tongue Kavu if you want.
Yes. But for the same cost, for the same CMC of a Flame Tongue Kavu, you only get 3 damage, not 4. And so I look at this and I'm like, is Flame Tongue Kavu really too powerful for Modern? That has to be the message here. I mean, it's 2 mana, 2/1. It's better. Like, it's on curve. It's all that stuff. But what about Flametongue Kavu? Can we have Flametongue Kavus back? So I
Yeah, that's
FTK at one
true.
point
So
was the best creature in standard.
so
So
it's a little
um,
baby nerfed FTK. Also, the artwork is so cute because it's like almost exactly the same as Flametongue Kavu.
oh yeah, the art is basically the same as Flametongue
Yeah,
Kavu,
it's just
right?
like
You
a
know,
smaller, a babier version of it.
exactly. And then, I mean, I mentioned this to you before we went live, but there is a lot of stuff, and I kind of stopped writing it down because there was so much of it I couldn't keep up. Kind of starting with braids. There's like braids, Cabal Coffers, Mirari's Wake, Patriarch's Bidding, even like Riptide Laboratory, and all these cards from this era of like OTJ and OLS, Onslaught, Legion Scourge, and Odyssey, Torment, Judgment, where I was playing a ton of Magic, and so all these decks, which are I feel certain are probably quite underpowered now. From that era, they're reprinting all these key cards from those decks. Like Patriarch's Bidding was a key card, and you see Braids was part of Mono Black Control or the sideboard against Mono Black Control. So there's all this stuff in there that I thought was really really interesting. And there's this throwback to Affinity. So like I said, there's this weird throwback mechanic in Modern Horizons 2 where it's not just reprinting the cards like I just named, but also bringing back these mechanics and because there's like artifact lands again, right? There's artifact lands are in this set, which is just unbelievable. And they try to balance it out. There's things, the Mox Monkey, Gorilla Shaman's in there. So, if you're playing artifact lands, be careful.
Yeah.
There's a Gorilla Shaman.
There's a Gorilla Shaman out there. That's cool. No, this Flametongue Yearling is sweet. I hadn't seen it yet. It's actually kind of interesting because I don't know if it's clear that it's worse than Flametongue Kavu.
I don't think it is.
The flexibility of being able to cast it on two is pretty important. Like, a lot of times you'll die with a Flametongue Kavu in hand, right? And you couldn't, cast it and you needed to deal 2 damage or something. So that's kind of
having the 2 mana 2/1 is very, very, I mean, I think it's probably a better card than Flametongue Kavu, but it also made me think, like, why not bring back Flametongue Kavu?
Why no Flametongue Kavu?
Why not both? Why not both?
Yeah.
So what did you think? I mean, this is a big one, and just for you, Gabby, what do you think of Counterspell coming to Modern?
I think it's totally fine, actually. I think, I think people have been trying to make control decks and happen in Modern for so long, and it just, Modern has for a long time just not really been on that axis. Not really. Like, it's not like the standard decks that can just be like a pure control deck and get away with it. I don't think it's gonna be overpowered to the point that it's gonna like be a problem for Modern. I think it's gonna be exciting for the people who are out there every day grinding to try to make control happen in Modern.
Of course. There's a weird way where I think it's totally fine. Yeah. I'm not worried about it for a second. I mean, I wonder if Mana Leak is better in Modern than Counterspell will be, seriously. But it is another kind of fan service thing, right? This is something like, hey, we're going to give you Counterspell. And I think that it's very safe and it feels like a lot. I think it feels, to a lot of people, it feels like it's a lot more than it will amount to.
Sure. I think so too. I think it's the same. You know what the reaction feels like to me a little bit? It was the same cards that were in the Mystical Archive that people saw, and they were like, oh my god, Channel's gonna be in the limited format. That's so busted. And it's like, hey, Channel's not actually a good card when you take it outside of the environment where you're supposed to be playing.
Don't draft it.
Do not draft it. You're not gonna get anything good in play.
Yeah, it is not a good card. Trust me, I've drafted it. Yeah. So it is not. It is
not
where you want to be.
Experience.
Yes.
I feel it's a little bit like that, where it's like, yeah, of course, Counterspell's really good in some formats, but I don't like Modern's super fast and not really cares that much about Counterspell. I think it's going to be just fine. Speaking of fan service, what did you think about draftable squirrels? That's hella fan service.
Oh my god, it's hella so. I mean, Chatterfang and everything happening with squirrels is giving me life. I love it. I love having all of the squirrels in there, having a squirrel lord, there's a lot going on here with squirrels in the set, and it is also, very Voltron-y. You have Squirrel Mob and stuff like that. And there's the gun. I can't remember what it's called right now, that like the acorn thing, and like you can sacrifice a squirrel and put an acorn counter on it, and all your squirrels get +1/+1 for as many acorn counters as on it. It also produces squirrels. 1 green, tap it. It gets you produce a squirrel. So I think the squirrel theming is awesome. Squirrels have been, God, did it start with Deranged Hermit? I'm not sure when it started, but
I think it started with something that made squirrel tokens, didn't it?
Yeah, Hermit makes
because I remember people loving like the super old school squirrel tokens, and Squirrel's Nest was, I think, one of the OG, or maybe not OG, but like OGer cards that got people really excited about it.
is, I want to say it's Odyssey,
It's super old.
and yeah, Hermit is Legacy, so Hermit would predate it. Hermit's the first one I remember,
Hmm.
but ever since squirrels have entered the Magic scene, they've been a thing. And why not celebrate them? They're awesome.
Yeah, I honestly can't believe it took this long for there to be like a squirrel's draftable archetype. Like it
Agreed.
seems it's in the same way that like what was the set that recently had dogs as an archetype? It was like M10 or
M20,
something, right? Or
M20,
M20.
yeah,
Yes,
M21.
it was. That was the one that had the prairie dog, right? The really cute prairie dog.
Right, right. There's like the selfless savior, and then there's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pack leader or leader of the pack or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just can't believe how long it's taken for them to actually make a squirrel draftable archetype, given how much I know people love squirrels. And so, yeah, there's like cool cards like Squirrel Mob that is just like a lord and pumping all your other stuff, or um, uh,
Is Chatterfang pack one pick one the squirrel
Chatterfang's very
lord, the
strong.
legendary?
So here's Chatterfang. Chatterfang Squirrel General, 2G, legendary creature Squirrel Warrior, has Forest Walk, which is surprising because a lot of the walk mechanics have gone. Because it's a really
This makes sense though.
for the
It's on
for
brand for a squirrel.
yeah, on brand for Chatterfang, totally. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel tokens are created instead. So, like, you make the tokens plus squirrel bonus for everything, and then an activated ability for black. Sacrifice X squirrels, target creature gets plus X minus X until end of turn. So
So
then
good.
you're like just pumping out squirrels like crazy. And then this isn't even a tap ability or anything. So you can just use this in combat if you want and shrink their stuff, clear the path for like
So
one of
good.
your attackers. Super, super strong card. It's a great commander also, because I'm sure people are going to be making like squirrel commander decks now.
Oh my god. They already exist. They're not making them. They're adding these cards to
That's
them.
true. That's true.
100% they already exist.
That's
Yeah,
true.
no question. So I think this is, again, total fan service, totally amazing. Um, we had a bit of a chat about cards we think are going to have impact. I know Counterspell we've kind of dismissed, but what do you think of Shardless Agent coming to Modern?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Such a staple for Legacy. I don't know enough about the modern metagame right now to say if Shardless Agent's actually gonna like move the needle for any of the decks right now. Like it's not like
You know,
modern changes that much at any given time, but I don't really know what decks would be excited to play Shardless Agent.
well, if you are looking for a deck,
Mm-hmm.
we just signed a new author to Channel Fireball, Aspiring Spike,
True. Nice segue.
and I happen to know that their first article has Shardless. Oh, I assume it is because I don't know if you're in this Slack chat where the title of the article is Modern Teamer Shardless Rhinos, which have the exact same number of syllables as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So you can say Modern Teamer Shardless Rhinos, Modern Teamer Shardless Rhinos. So people were doing that in our Slack chat and in my morning meetings all day, but it's just kind of cool because Shardless Agent coming in, Cascade, boy, I tell you, man, Cascade feels like another one of those Pandora's box abilities to me.
Oh, it absolutely
And
is.
bringing Shardless Agent in, there's like a one red, one other 3/1. I think it's one red, one other 3/1 creature. And if there's 4 different types of card types in your graveyard, they have Cascade. Now it's only a 2-mana spell, so that in Shardless Agent only 3, but there's also all these free spells in here, right? There's there's a demonic tutor that's there's suspend spells. I'm sorry, not free spells, suspend spells,
Okay.
but you cascade in. You can cast
Oh,
them, right?
now I know what you're talking about. Okay, yes, yes, yes. The suspense spells, which you can cascade into because you can cast them
Yes.
if you do that. Yes.
And so like having a 2-mana cascader, if you can get it online, is really really good in that. So there's like a demonic tutor. I think there's a bribery one. I don't know if you saw that one. There's
there's
a bribery
really good
cascade
ones.
spell.
The downside to those spells usually is that you put them on the stack and it takes forever for you to get them. But if you find ways to kind of like cheat them out into play, example cascade, yes, that totally works. So yeah, maybe trying to cascade into some of that stuff is like one of the ways that you could really break that format. There's a ton of already like those free spells in modern right now. There's ancestral. Oh my god, I'm forgetting
Always
the
a
name.
good one.
The ancestral that takes 3 turns for it to
Ancestral Visions.
visions. Thank you.
Ancestral Visions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then there's like Living End.
Yeah, all of the I think all Hypergenesis is out.
Hypergenesis
Living
is
End
banned.
still in.
No,
Yeah.
Hypergenesis is banned.
But there's a whole bunch of suspend cards in there, and the more This is Wizards. Like the more you tinker with Cascade, the more you're courting disaster with
Yeah.
those suspend cards. But I like to see, you know me, I'm an advocate for pushing the barriers, but banning quickly. So I'm all for it. I am not worried about it, but because I like to have Pandora's box in hand. I like to kind of
Oh,
like
I know
feel the
you
grooves
like
around
pushing the
it,
envelope. So
you
you want to be like, all
Yeah.
right, let's try it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. What's the worst thing gonna happen? We have to ban something. Okay. For Wizards, I know that's a really bad thing. So
All right,
I don't
so
want to push that.
I wanted to see what you thought about this card, Mashi. The
Oh my gosh.
Asmoranomardicatai blah 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 blah. The the
I
best
hate it.
version.
I hate the card, by the way, because I don't want to say it.
The best version of this I've seen is like Baila tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, and they just like wrote up the lyrics to Ay Macarena. And then they did a parody of that, and then they changed the whole title or like in the words of the card to be that.
To be that? Oh my gosh.
I don't know how you say this card, but if you haven't seen it, I'm not kidding. It's like just got a name that's
It's alphabet soup.
Asmoranomardicatai Dakar. Like that's the name. I don't know how you're supposed to say it.
This is a throwback as well.
To what?
She appears on flavor text for I can't remember the card. There's a flavor text where she's quoted.
I see.
It's like
and her name
Underworld
is
Chef.
on the
Yeah,
text?
Underworld Chef or something like that.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So this is legendary creature human wizard. As long as you've discarded a card this turn, you may play B or R to cast a spell because it doesn't have a cost. When the name of the card enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a card named the Underworld Cookbook, reveal it, and put it into your hand and shuffle. And then you can sacrifice 2 foods. Target creature deals 6 damage to itself. Is this like you go eat super spicy food and then you sack yourself at the end? Like, what's going on here?
I think
Is this Luis when he goes eat hot pot? Is
like,
that
yeah,
what's happening?
she's the cook. She's giving you something. It ain't good for you. Don't eat it.
Yeah.
Don't eat it. And once you do, you're boned. It's all over. And she's got this cookbook. The cookbook's just a 1-mana artifact. Tap to discard a card, create a food token. Okay. 4 tap sack. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So, I mean...
why does this card not have a casting cost? This is just because the name is so long? Is that the joke? I think that's the joke. It doesn't have a casting cost. I'm dead serious.
Does it have a madness cost?
No, it has a... As long as you've discarded a card this turn, you may play B or R to cast a spell. Like hybrid black or red.
I think it must be.
I think it's because there's no space.
Must be. That is unbelievable.
That's really funny, dude.
Now it's driving me nuts. Like what card she's on. I know she's on her card somewhere because this alphabet soup is not.
If you know, let us know. We're on Magic FM podcast on Twitter. I think that's the easiest way to reach either of us, but also on Twitter. Like we both have Twitter handles that we're pretty active on. That's so funny. This card doesn't have a casting cost because it's too long to fit.
They actually could not fit it on the card because the name. I mean, they've kept the font the same size, so I guess that was just a decision they made. But man,
I think that it's meant to be a joke, right? Like this card's name is so long that we can't even fit the casting cost.
What do you think of the kind of color shifted stuff? We have a Yawgmoth's Will and Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth shifted to green. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, what?
I thought it was interesting. I mean, there's a bunch of cards in Magic or in Modern already that kind of like break the color pie a little bit. So I didn't think that was like. That was just kind of like, oh, that's neat. Like that's kind of how I saw it. I didn't think that.
They didn't do that for anyone else though, right? Green got 2 black cards.
I don't think it's a cycle. No, I think it's just some cards that did it. I mean, some cards we just are seeing like a parallel version of them. Like I don't know if you saw Ignoble Hierarch. Did you see that card?
Yes, that is such a good card.
I mean, it looks exactly like Noble Hierarch, except it's like I don't know. It's like a goblin, I think.
Goblin Shaman, yeah, it's a Goblin
Shaman.
Shaman.
Exact same text as a Noble Hierarch, except it's for Jund colors. So that's it. That's the card.
I mean, like literally, the flavor text mirrors it because the flavor text is like she represents like these 3 different land types correlating to the mana cost, and the Ignoble Hierarch has the same thing. Only there are land types that kind of are in tandem with the mana cost for that the Ignoble Hierarch produces. So it's great. Again,
it's really funny. I mean, even if you look at the art of both cards, you'll actually see there's cute art stuff in the set too. You'll see Noble Hierarch is holding her staff like facing towards the right, the ignoble hierarch is actually facing it towards the left. Like it does look like they're mirrored with each other. And another cool one that I don't know if you saw that was cute, like art wise. Um, where is it? It was Imperial Recruiter. An Imperial Recruiter. I don't know if you saw this, but Imperial Recruiter had in the background of the art, you can see a Pestermite and a Kikijiki. So like it shows you what you can go fetch with it. Like they did that on purpose.
Get out of here. Oh, I have the wrong art here. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's great. See, you love things like that. You love to see it.
It's so cool. I thought that was so cool.
I want to one last point. I know we're running up against time here. One last point that I thought was interesting. It's not my point. Someone on Twitter pointed this out, and I'm so sorry because I randomly scrolled past it a few days ago, and I went to try to look for it today, and I couldn't find it. But have you seen Thrasta Tempest's Roar?
I don't think so.
So it's not necessarily remarkable except for one thing, which I thought was really, really cool. Thrasta Tempest Roar, 2 green, 10 other for a 7/7 legendary dinosaur.
Yeah, okay.
This spell costs 3 colorless less to cast for each other spell cast this turn. Trample haste, trample over planeswalkers. Thrasta Tempest Roar as hexproof as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. What I love about this, and someone suggested, is shouldn't trample always work this way? Shouldn't trample always trample over planeswalkers? And I really think it should. I think.
Oh wow, that's a really good point, and I totally
trample
agree.
Trample over planeswalkers shouldn't be extra text. That should be how trample works from now on. Like I read that and it's something I never thought of, but it's like, no, that's actually how trample should work.
That makes so much
always.
sense. It makes so much sense. Wow.
So I love the card just for that, and I really hope I just think they should just change how trample works. They should just change the rule. Trample, just you trample over planeswalkers when you attack them.
I love it. Yeah, I'm on board with that change. That makes so much sense to me too, because they're all creatures in front of you, right? Why would the planeswalkers be different?
This is just a wizard in front of you. You've trampled over that poor wizard too. So I want to, I think it was a really cool thing as we close out, and I touched on it very briefly when we were on Modern Horizons 2. I think it was just so cool that they put you and Luis's
that was so sweet. We loved it. It was really awesome. It was just cool to see like people drafted and see what people thought of it, and us to be able to share something that we really love with a community. Like people were so nice about it,
It got rave reviews. I didn't have a chance to do it, but it got rave reviews. And I think there's something, we've talked about this a lot. We've done this whole thing. Hopefully this stuff with COVID comes to an end, but I have a cube myself, which I need to dust off, but I put myself in your position just in Magic, because cube is it is a kitchen table format, and the ability, I'm so jealous, not jealous. I'm happy for you. I'm not jealous, but it is such a great thing. I think that Wizards enables, you and Luis to invite everyone to your kitchen table to cube with you guys. Yeah. I just think that's just like an amazing thing and such a wonderful thing. They did that for Mengu as well during these times to kind of like extend the kitchen table to the world. And the feedback was great. I was watching Twitter. People loved the cube. I think it was
so cool, Mashi. I'm literally in the process right now of buying cards from CFP to update my IRL cube because we want to get it up to date now, because we want to take it to like a cabin that we're going to go to. So
yeah,
it's so cool.
People were asking questions like, "Oh, I was gonna build a cube. Should I just build Luis and Gabby's cube? Is that the cube I should get now?" And it's just like, yeah. I mean, if you can afford it, it's a powered cube. Okay, it's a powered cube. So, I just thought that was a really cool thing, and I didn't want to blow past it too quickly. So I'm really happy for you.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. We were jazzed. We were super jazzed. I mean, we told people like, "Hey, if you like this cube, let Wizards know, because we would love to do an update for it and bring it back for a different week." Like, I think we would be super happy to do that if they were interested in something like that. So I know that they look at the numbers of how people drafted, and I know they look at people's feedback. So if that's something you liked and you enjoyed, definitely let them know.
It's less than 6 months till the holidays.
True.
I would love to see this back for Cubeness. That would be great. Luis and Gabby present Happy Cubeness. I think that would be great. So let's cross our fingers and reach out if you can. If you want to reach out to us, you can find me. I'm at Mashi Scanlon across all social media platforms. She's Gabby Sparts at Gabby Sparts across all social media platforms. You can find her on Twitch at twitch.tv/Gabby Sparts. You can find the podcast, Magic FM. We're on channelfireball.com. If you want to see the video, we do a video component as well. You can find us on YouTube or channelfireball.com for all of that. You can message the podcast at Magic FM podcast. And that does it for this month. It's going to be another month till we have another one. Like I said, it felt like, wow, already. And oh my gosh, it's been so long. So we got to capture that. We hopefully more good news. And boy, next month we'll be right up. We'll have a bunch of Forgotten Realms spoilers.
True. I'm so
So
excited about that.
hopefully
I'm
we can talk. We have a
hella
bunch of D&D
jazzed.
talk. Yeah, that's going to be great. So until then, as always, everyone, please be wonderful to yourselves. Be wonderful to each other. We'll see you next month.
Bye bye.